Hi, I'm Gaston. Thank you for joining me today for my author presentation. I'd like to take a few minutes and discuss my Gothic short story, Puddle. The inspiration for this short story came to me when I was walking home the other day, looking at puddles. Here is the section of the story where it retells the events that occurred to me that day. The rain had stopped and the water was clear, from the unrippled surface down to where dead leaves had settled amongst the mud. He was intently captivated by the effect perceived when changing the focus of his vision, first seeing with clarity the muddy floor beneath the water. Quick shift, and Lawrence was looking at the branches high above, being reflected back by the water's pristine surface, and again staring keenly at the muck, at the decaying leaves and other vegetative refuse that found itself embedded therein. Another inspiration for my story was Isaac Asimov's short story Light Verse, in which an inadvertent destruction of a well-loved entity leads to the murder of passion committed by the one who felt the loss. That's the end of my story. But a quick overview of my story would something like this. A guy sees a beautiful lady in a puddle, but it's not like a physical lady, it's more like a water spirit. He keeps her in a bottle, and they love each other very much until his friends drink the lady, and then he kills his friends. Some Gothic themes that I explored in my story are the theme of isolation, but rather than a physical isolation, my protagonist, main character, feels more of a social isolation. As studies show, modern Americans are lacking close friends. A 2006 study showed a near tripling of American social isolation between 1985 and 2004. As Matthew Brashears, who is an assistant professor of sociology at Cornell University, said, "This shrinking social network makes us potentially more vulnerable," which is very Gothic, I feel. Another theme of my story is delusion. Whether Lawrence sees what is real or whether it's a hallucination, and even if it is a hallucination, how his actions carry through with the full belief that he's seeing the real world. The last Gothic theme would be murder, which is Gothic in that it breaks moral law. In writing my story, I faced a couple of challenges. The biggest challenge I felt was trying to figure out what is Gothic. How do I make my story have that spirit of Gothic in it, feel very Gothic? Equally challenging, though, were plot distractions, where I would find myself writing but missing plot points or like taking a tangent too far. There is a specific passage, I took like a paragraph describing why my character is named how he is, but it's a paragraph that kind of runs nowhere and doesn't really add to the story. There is a certain balance, I feel, between adding background to your story to make it more realistic and taking your story places it doesn't need to go because it doesn't add anything important. I feel in the future, when I revise my story, I would plan to make my story more focused, stick to plot points that will make my story interesting. And also I might revise it to have a more ambiguous end. In my story, I currently end it with doctors saying that Lawrence has been hallucinating for months, and as Gothic stories tend to be more ambiguous whether or not the characters sees what they are seeing, I might change it, maybe have the beautiful woman show up again in another pool of water to someone else. Make it be like that. And a final thing I might look into revising is to make it more realistic. When I originally wrote it, I figured that the hallucinations would be caused by Lyme disease, which Lawrence would contract walking through a field and getting bit by a tick. But then when I looked up Lyme disease, it's not a very common symptom to have hallucinations. So just do more research there. This is my work cited. I thank you for your time.
All right, any questions for Gaston? One question. Wow, people really want those extra participation points at the end of the semester. There we go. Amy?
What was your favorite part about writing your story?
I really enjoyed the descriptive part where I took just one scene in the story and really worked out all the 5 senses, how it would feel to be there. Like we heard that's the best part to read because it feels so fleshed out. It's also really interesting to write and just think about how to write that.
All right, thank you very much.
Or not.
And next person up can make your way up to the front.